Up next on Traveling the Mouse, we have all seen the Mario movie, as we will discuss that and a little bit about Universal versus Disney. The main topic on this today will be places to stay in which you can save a little money when going to Walt Disney World or the surrounding area. That's coming up on Traveling with the Mouse. Welcome to another edition of Traveling with a Mouse. This is episode number 402. And Adam, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing rather well.
I am too.
What's up, everybody?
I've had a pretty good weekend overall. So, as I understand it, this past week or this past weekend, you had an opportunity to see the Mario movie?
Yes. I was the last person on the planet to see it.
The last person on the planet.
I feel like I was.
Okay, and what were your thoughts?
My son, my youngest, is very much into Mario and plays it on the Switch all the time. And he loved it, like the whole movie. Both my sons liked it. My wife loved it. I loved it. I was surprised, not surprised, I shouldn't say I was surprised at how good it was. I was just impressed with how well it was made and the cast. It's very much like Universal to have a really strong cast like most of their animated films do.
Yeah, like Sing and Minions and stuff.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. They get the A-list celebrities. They always have the music references too, which I thought was like slightly out of place, but I did like how they kind of alluded to the original Mario movie, like being in Brooklyn and all that, like that super, what was that? I forgot who was in that movie.
I know.
I vaguely remember how bad it was.
I know that John Leguizamo was in it because he was either Mario or Luigi. I forgot which one he was.
Right.
And then Dennis Hopper was Bowser.
Yes, that's right. Dennis Hopper. Wow.
I can't remember who the other brother was, though.
Yeah.
And now
anyway,
that I think about it.
I do remember watching it, and it just wasn't great, but it was kind of a nice little...
Well, it was live action. It's really not two...
Right.
It's two different things, really. But
sure, but they did callbacks to that, and of course, like every Mario game in existence,
right.
Like every character, the music you could spot.
Well, at this point, it's been a few weeks since I've seen it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think about what I really remember about it. I thought they did a pretty good job of making Peach a strong character without putting her in front of Mario, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They did a good job of that. And unfortunately, Luigi was kind of the way he always is. I thought it was kind of funny because, well, I say unfortunately, it actually worked. But what I thought was kind of funny was the situation that they ended up putting him in. The first thing I thought of was Luigi's Mansion, right? Was that what you thought of?
When he was, there was a certain scene that was like, oh, this is very Luigi's Mansion.
If I didn't, since I didn't mention it, folks, there are spoilers in here in case you haven't seen it.
Oh, sorry.
No, I just thought I would put that disclaimer out there. But what were you about to say? I'm sorry.
They made references to a lot of different games or different, versions of the Mario games over the years. Mario Kart, of course, had a big part in this.
Right, big part in Rainbow Roads.
Yeah. And Donkey Kong, I thought the casting was really spot on with the character. It just kind of fit, even though Donkey Kong, the character and the voice in the video games wasn't as...
Well, there wasn't really
Seth Rogen like... Well,
he didn't say anything in the video games, right?
All he said,
yeah.
But Seth Rogen, like it had he did really well with that. And am I wrong? But the voice, the guy that does Mario's voice was the character, not the dad. He was the character in the restaurant. I think it was the guy that does Mario's actual voice in the video games, or has done them up to this point.
Oh, you mean the one that does? I don't know. Is that the case? I mean, that would be pretty cool too if it was.
I think that was him because they kept,
It's a me.
Right, he kept, that guy, And I'm like, okay, I think I'll have to look that up, but I'm pretty sure that was the guy. Anyway.
Hello.
But I'll say this, and this is going to scare Disney. It should scare Disney coming from me, but I will definitely go to Epic Universe when it opens.
Right. I think a lot of people will. I really do. I don't know if it will scare Disney as much as
It should.
they're going to take a hit.
Coming from someone like me,
I still feel like there's a lot of people, though, that are going to go there and do, like, if they're going to take a vacation, they're probably just going to stay somewhere that's more neutral, kind of like what I'm about to talk about here a little later.
Yeah, right.
But, and then just do a little bit of everything. They might include Disney, but they're not going to stay with Disney.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
right. It's gonna chip away at what used to be a 4 or 5 days at Disney to maybe 2-3 days at Disney, and 2-3 somewhere else. And
I will say this, the way it looks right now, Universal has managed to weather the COVID era better than Disney did.
Yeah, hands down, for a lot of reasons. The governor's also not after Universal. So.
Right, they've just kind of stayed out of that. They've just kind of been sitting on the sidelines, but
while they build away at their third gate.
Something like that. But it's funny because they say third gate. Some people consider Volcano Bay because of the way it is a third gate, but it is still a water park.
Right.
But, it's their Typhoon Lagoon, I guess, because it was the first one.
Then Disney has 6 gates.
Yeah, if that's the case.
Right.
If you're going to include that.
Right.
But, and I know we're a Disney podcast, but we do call ourselves Traveling with a Mouse. Our original tagline just says, all of our travels, mostly Disney, which we've stuck to, mostly Disney, but we have stuck in a couple of other travels.
I've been a loyalist, but I don't know, it's changing.
One of the things that Universal has as far as hotel goes is they kind of offer a little bit better amenities for the price, because that's one of the things I was looking at. I mean, don't get me wrong, their top of the line hotels are still in the $500 and $600 range per night, but that $500 and $600 range also gets you unlimited express. Anytime you're staying at one of their top of the line hotels, whether it be Hard Rock, Portofino Bay, or Royal Pacific, if you're staying at one of those, you get unlimited express. What's unlimited express? That is the skip the line version that they have.
Right, it's different. Yeah.
You get to do it at whatever ride that accepts it all day long. You don't just get to do it once.
Yeah.
So that's included there. So, I mean, that's pretty big if you're going to do that. But
yeah,
some of what they get accommodation-wise, if you're just looking for space, for the money, is a little better than what Disney gives. But I think it's because they know they have to be competitive in that area. They in order to entice people to come there.
Right.
I think in the entire Orlando area, just in my opinion, having stayed there one time, Cabana Bay is probably the best overall for your money, what you can get.
In that area?
Yeah, it really is.
I don't know.
It has a lazy river. It's got walking. You can pretty much walk to Volcano Bay. They have what they call these family suites. I mean, and it's all for less than like $200, if I'm not mistaken. Definitely less than $300.
Yeah,
a night.
Not too shabby.
Yeah.
Well, one other thing I'll say about this is, I think Universal's got an advantage over Disney when it comes to story for their animated films right now. Yeah, Disney's struggling.
They definitely made a good move by striking a deal with the Mario brand.
Yeah.
Because it still holds weight. It has the nostalgia for the parents, basically.
Totally.
That's and what it still has, and it still has, it's still popular today. Like, they're still making Mario games, right? So,
and I play them with my kids today.
There you go.
Even the ones that I played as a kid, my kids play on the Switch. I mean, you can play them all.
Right.
So
it was a pretty smart move. We'll just say that.
And it really digs into Disney's demographic, fun for the whole family kind of thing.
Yeah.
So great move on their part.
I would overall say that Universal is still more of a teenager range, just because of the thrill. A lot of the thrill rides require a little bit more height requirement.
Right.
So I think they're really more appealing to the family with teenagers.
Until Epic Universe comes along.
Yeah, but you might even say that now it's kind of tweenager, I guess, is the way.
They're trying to expand their demographic too, I think. But
if you're looking though for overall like something for everybody, I think Disney's still the place. I mean, if you're looking for something for every member of the family, Disney is still the place.
Yeah,
it really
quality.
is.
I mean, they still have good quality for the most part. You're going to pay a heck of a lot more for it, though.
Yeah, the only thing, the value is not there as much. That's the thing that's really kind of, and I think it's just more apparent to someone like myself because we've been going there so long. Like
right.
we stayed at some place like the Poly, and it be for like $200 a night or whatever.
Right.
And then you see what they've done to it, and it's like, they really haven't added $600 worth of
amenities or
yeah.
special stuff since, it's just gone crazy.
Yeah. At the same time, apparently people are buying it to some degree. I don't know.
It's got to be. I mean, the fact that they're expanding it again for more DVC, people are buying it.
Well, when I just looked at it recently, though, and it was... What, a standard room was something, I think I showed you the screenshot, right? Something like $800 a night for the standard room? That was the studio, I think you're talking about. I did a screenshot of a standard view and a studio. Yeah. One of them was higher than the other. Maybe the studio was the highest, I don't recall. But they were both still in that range. And this was for the summer, right? This was for June.
Right, which is kind of the slow season now.
Yeah, but I just got to thinking that, okay, 20 years ago, this is like 3 to 4 times the price that it was back then.
Mm-hmm.
That's an insane increase.
Yeah, it's a big jump.
Yeah, but people are obviously paying it to some degree, like we said.
Right. They're charging it because they can, which, here it was $672 for the standard view regular room, looks like. Studio was $854. Deluxe Studio Lakeview,
so
which
this was June.
That's why it was more the Lakeview, $854.
Yeah, well, I know that's June because basically what I've been doing is I've been looking at all different kinds of options because basically what it is the kids are out for school. I have a week's vacation planned for basically the second week in June that I just picked ahead of time. I just picked it at random pretty much. We were going to go do something. We weren't sure what it was going to be at that point in time.
That was rack rate too, right? What you were looking at.
Yes, because they didn't have a discount at Poly. However, one of the things I did consider is had a decent rate for Saratoga.
Mm-hmm.
It was like $330 or something if you're choosing like a Sunday through a Thursday night or something like that. I was looking at that. That's not bad considering you get extra hours on Mondays for Epcot and extra hours on Wednesdays for Magic Kingdom. I mean, that's not that bad.
It's not terrible.
It depends on what you want, I guess, amenity-wise.
Yeah.
And especially since how we've discussed more recently that we don't mind driving, obviously, anymore. So Saratoga really actually does hold a pretty good good place now. Once upon a time, you would say, oh, it's really far away from everything. But when you drive, you're like, no, it's nothing.
Yeah, nothing's far. It's just the buses drive so slow.
Right. If you're trying to save time, you don't use Disney transportation is the bottom line.
Right. Time.
Unless you're staying in a monorail or a Skyliner.
Right. Even still, you run the risk of breakdowns and
this is true.
Anyway.
Well, and in the case of Skyliner, there's just 2 parks that you have access to more easily. So
speaking of that, it's kind of the monorail you were talking about in monorail resorts. It's kind of a good segue into that story about a modification Disney recently made to the app.
Are you talking about the food one or?
Yes. You're no longer able to modify last-minute dining reservations. So I would say this is probably the worst kept secret in all of Disney World. This trick that a lot of people used, including us.
Well, apparently a lot more people started using it or else they wouldn't have done this.
Like I said, it was the worst kept secret that you could do that. And it was a matter of time before they closed that loophole. So you
unfortunately.
Right. You can still cancel a reservation anytime outside of 2 hours, which you could possibly still maybe do the same kind of thing you did before with the 2-hour window. Just depends. It's a little less likely, but you could probably still work it. You just gotta time it better.
Right.
It's a little harder to time it. And, you gotta get a security person that'll let you in 2.5 hours early or whatever.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, there's some trickiness there and some hit or miss, but yeah, you could modify up to 21 minutes out of your actual reservation. And now you can't even do that. So
yeah.
Which, doesn't really bother me that much, but it'll be interesting as far as like challenge runs, how it just adds a little bit more complexity to a challenge run.
Right.
Potentially, but.
Yeah. The challenge is it does have a pulse, as we've mentioned more recently. There's still not been a ton of people that have attempted it because it's not the same as before. Like I said, I do think it still has a pulse. If Disney ever gets away from the whole 2 p.m. top time, except for in select cases, then we might see it pick up a little more. I think that's the main thing holding people back right now.
Right.
And it's going to be much more difficult when all the rides are online. So,
right. But I would also say this adds spontaneity like you want, John, which you've mentioned before, because now people won't be trying to hold these reservations until the last minute. They'll
this
be
is true.
Trying to cancel outside of 2 hours. So same day reservations are going to be way more plentiful still.
It could. We'll say that it could. However, there are certain reservations that people are going to get 180 days out or whatever they're allowed to do right now. They're going to hold that baby until forever. They're not going to cancel those.
Right. But like I said, same day, you're probably going to get more availability.
You could. Well, I guess we'll have to see how it works out.
I'll say this too: there's certain resorts where the parking lots will be more empty.
Certain resorts? Which ones are you referring to, Adam?
I don't know. I'm not going to say.
Ones? Certain monorail resorts?
Maybe, possibly. But there's probably a workaround. Let's see. We'll wait and see. But who knows?
It depends on how devoted you are to completing that challenge. You might just pay the fee for
that's
for missing it altogether.
Right. It's $10 a person. So if you're on a run by yourself or one other person, it's $20. It's probably worth the.
You're like, is my run worth $20? Yes, it is.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Is like you still do it for that, but for the majority who did it for other reasons,
right,
it would probably be they won't do it anymore.
Disney ultimately just found another way to make extra money. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Although, in the past, when I have, what's the word? I guess when you're outside the window, even though I've only done it a couple of times, I've actually had pretty good luck with still getting it canceled without the fee, like them waiving the fee when I call. But you have to go to the trouble of calling.
Right. Which is, well, I was going to say, by the time someone answers the phone, your reservation would have passed by like 3 hours anyway.
I remember one time, it was pretty bad. It was, I don't know whether I should confess to this or not on the air, but we'll see. Because it was so long ago, I guess it won't be a big deal. Whenever we went on our baby moon, I guess, like my wife was 6 months pregnant.
Yeah.
I guess when we went, she was just not. I had a Le Cellier reservation, and she was just not going to be up to eating it. Pretty much at that particular point, she wasn't feeling well necessarily. So I kind of called. It was somewhat last minute about it, and I used that as the excuse. The fact that, well, my wife's pregnant and she's feeling sick,
right?
And they waived it. I mean, they canceled it. I mean, it was true.
Why is it? Yeah.
It was for the most part. It was for the most part true. It was for the most part true because she wasn't physically ill at the time, though. She just didn't feel like eating it.
Dude, that's not a big deal at all.
Yeah, but I mean, they did. They didn't charge me anything. They didn't charge me the fee, so I was grateful for that. I think I used it one other time, and I can't remember how I got out of that one. Now that I think about it,
yeah,
it was something like, "There's no way we're going to make this. This happened. Whatever. I don't know. I just something."
Yeah, I remember doing that once a long time ago, and they waived it, but it was because there was like this huge thunderstorm, and I'm just like, I am not getting out in this and going to Magic Kingdom it was like Liberty Tree or something.
Yeah,
I'm just not doing that.
I honestly feel like they rely.
Like, okay.
I honestly feel like they rely on the upcoming generation that like doesn't like to call. Like they would rather like, I don't know, jump off a cliff than actually call someone on the phone. Instead of, I think they're probably taking advantage of that generation, thinking they just won't do it. They won't call no matter what, and then they'll just eat the fee.
Right.
When it's all said and done. I really feel like that's kind of what they're heading towards. But
speaking of eating the fee, I don't know if I mentioned this on our last trip report, but I ordered Casey's while we were waiting on the fireworks to start. It was like 20 minutes before, so I was like, hey, it should be done in 5 minutes. Of course, it wasn't. My order didn't get ready until halfway through the fireworks, so I just left it. I was like, forget it. It was like $10 for like corn dog nuggets. Because the fireworks were over and we were going to head back to Polynesian to eat at Trader Sam's / Captain Cook's. So, like, forget that. I'm not going through this crowd to get corn dog nuggets and then walk back.
Right.
So, forget it. I just ate that, like, $12 or whatever it was.
Although the corn dog nuggets are really good.
Yeah, I was going to eat that while I was watching the fireworks, but
yeah,
it didn't work out. Anyway,
I'm trying to remember, what day did we say it was that Garden Grill was going to start serving breakfast again?
Oh, yeah, it was June. It was early June. It was like June.
Yeah. And the reason why I'm interested, June 14th. So that's during the time period I'm talking about going. What day is that of the week?
Work that out.
I'm going to go like the first day it's open if possible.
Yeah.
That's a Wednesday. So.
Are they allowing booking for it yet?
Good question. I may not be able to get it on the Wednesday.
Because you're within the window, aren't you?
Yeah, I need to look. Oh well, I'll do that after this podcast.
Yeah,
I'll do later.
It'll sell out quick.
Yeah,
but you can probably get it last minute.
I would say in the last 5 to 8 years, whatever it's been, as far as breakfast on property goes, that has been my absolute favorite go-to, whatever you want to call it, that I have encountered.
Garden Grill?
Yes. I mean, do you have do you have one that you would give a contender to? I mean,
that's like a table service?
You know what? I will say a good contender that I had in October of 21 was I had a really good experience at Ohana, breakfast-wise.
I was going to say, Ohana is probably the one that would come to mind as being able to compete with that.
I think, though, if I have a combination of characters and food, I'm going to give it to Garden Grill. Because the characters at Ohana is a little bit on the weak side, or at least they were, to me.
Well, did they bring the characters back there yet?
Well, good point. I mean, the last time I did it, they didn't have it, but the food was really good.
Do you want Garden Grill on the 15th at 9:10 a.m.? Because it's available.
I'll take it.
Do you want me to book it for you?
Why not? You're on my my Disney experience.
The only problem is, I mean, I could book it now, but
you have to show up.
I would be on it.
I could say, I'm Adam Brown.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
I was about to say, but if you no-show, then I'm going to get charged for it. So you should probably look it up yourself.
I'll look, but
it's there.
It's nice to know that it's there.
I think you'll find it. You'll be able to get it.
I'll be able to pull that one. It's not like it's a Cinderella's Royal Table or anything.
I also looked up Party of 4, but you're going with a group, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you may be harder to find a big group.
So I might as well get into this. The intention is, we were going to go somewhere, like I say, in June.
Yeah.
We'd actually talked about Universal and staying with Universal. But whenever some friends of ours said that they might want to go, we started looking elsewhere. We floated a couple of ideas out there really just recently, just not too long before we did this show.
Uh-huh.
We floated the idea of a DVC stay, maybe even on points, or maybe since Saratoga was relatively reasonable, as far as the price per night goes. And that would include the extra hours on Monday nights for Epcot and the extra hours on Wednesday night for Magic Kingdom if we had done that. And it still hasn't been ruled out at this point as of the recording of this show, but we're kind of leaning toward staying longer and taking like an Airbnb that we found that's a lot more space, for a home. It's roughly $1,400 for the whole 7 nights, and you get all that space, and you get your own private pool. So it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah,
overall.
The Airbnbs in Orlando are great prices. I've seen
they really are. I've seen you've looked at them before.
I have,
the Verbos or whatever.
Right, VRBO, Verbo. Yeah, they're all. I've not stayed at one, but friends and family of ours have, and I've been in one, and I'm like, yeah, this is not bad for. Like $200 a night or something crazy. For a huge house with a private pool and all that. So it's not bad. Not bad at all.
It kind of gets me to one of those things that part of the subject I want to talk about today is like, what is it like? A lot of people think, oh, Disney's so expensive. One of the things you can't really do much about is ticket price. Okay. You'll be able to find a little bit of discount on ticket price in certain places, but for the most part, the tickets are what they are. I mean, that's just the way it is. The place where you can save money if you're looking to save money is by where you stay.
Yeah.
That is the biggest place you can save money at. And it depends on what your situation is and what you want. If you want to go with a bigger group looking for something like an Airbnb or a Verbo, VRBO, whatever you want to call it, might be a good option.
And I don't know what I'm talking about because I stayed at an Airbnb last year, literally last July. It was not a great area because it was so much construction, but it was down I-4 a little ways, but the house was fantastic.
The house itself, right.
Yeah, the house itself was great, but
if you can find the right place.
Right. You got to do your research.
Yeah. One thing about that area, the Orlando area, is they have a lot of almost like what we'll call communities that have townhouses and what have you in there that are really good, secure places to stay.
Yeah.
For a good price.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty of good places to stay
that
are close to Disney too, or Universal, or they're close to everything.
I would say
terms.
Yeah, I would say some of the more desirable ones are a little closer to the Disney area than the Universal, but that's just a matter of location.
Right. Because Universal is a little bit more populated area, I guess you'd say.
It's just off of I-4.
Right. And Disney's a little bit further down, but
right. So, see, really, you could find stuff on the south side of 192
right.
that would be pretty reasonable.
Basically where we were last July, and that a little bit further over. And the only problem was the neighborhood was kind of under construction still, and so we were in a cul-de-sac, but the trash service they didn't have yet. So it was like 2 giant dumpsters in the street is where you threw your garbage. And there was like birds flying over every day, but that was the only drawback really. But anyway, so you got to do your research as to where.
Well, the place, we've only done it once so far, just like you, but it was in October of 21. So it was really when the 50th just kicked off, right? I can't remember the name of it, but I know it was, like I said, just south of 192. And we had a pretty good, as far as how we drove to get there. We had a pretty good back road we had easy access to. Going that way, you don't necessarily have to go down to World Drive, which from 192, compared to what it used to be, can be a little bit of a slog, depending on the time of day.
Yeah.
It's just more busy than it once was.
Yeah.
But if you can able to go straight across and go find your way to Western Way area, it's a lot easier, right?
Right. We were in the Champions Gate area. That's where I remember.
Right. I was going to say Champions Gate, Windsor Hills is a popular one. Enclave, I think, is one that's over that. I want to say is it Emerald? Emerald something.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of neighborhoods just south of 192 that are good options for vacation homes.
Yeah.
and they're really reasonably close to Disney.
Right. I would say closer to 192 is probably better than I-4 because I-4 can be awful depending on the time of day.
I-4 is one of the worst interstates in the entire country, in my opinion. It's just, it's terrible.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because you have like the worst drivers from everywhere that drive there, but I mean, it's something. Yeah. I personally, it's so bad. I mean, I've driven it. Don't get me wrong. I've done what I've had to do.
I've done it, yeah.
But it's so bad that I personally, when I will actually calculate and say, is a non-highway route going to be, how much of a pain is this going to be compared to just taking I-4?
Right.
Time-wise. If it's not that bad, I'm just like, I'm definitely taking the non-highway route.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I-4 can be awful. Yeah.
I would rather spend the extra 10 minutes or whatever it is to not take I-4.
Yeah.
That's
most
of
the time, yes. Yeah. I-4 is awful.
And now for a quick commercial break.
Calling all parents. Meet the Family Cash Card, Greenlight's newest credit card for parents. You can earn up to 3% cash back on every dollar spent. No limits, no categories, no hassle. No kidding. You can choose to auto-invest your cash back to pay for your kids' college. Apply it to your balance, or send your cash back straight to your wallet. It's basically cash back your way, every day. Get started today at greenlight.com.
And now, back to the show.
Another good option that I've looked at.
Mm-hmm.
These are I'm kind of just going to go on recent experience, I guess, because I've looked at, and this is one that I have taken a long time ago, as far as a lot of space for not that much money.
Mm-hmm.
Roughly, I guess it was probably 13, 14 years ago now, somewhere in that range. I did Mystic Dunes.
Right, yeah.
They have usually pretty good sized rooms for a reasonable price. Like if you were to look right now, you could get up to a 3-bedroom for less than $300. I mean, that's unheard of, right? And it's on a golf resort, so it's really not that bad overall. And it's in the same general area of the other places we're talking about.
Yeah.
And one plus by it now, in my opinion, is the fact that it's now owned by Hilton. Hilton now owns Mystic Dunes. So it's part of their, like, I don't know if you want to call it vacation club or whatever they call it, but it's part of their group.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think that kind of just raises the bar for it just a little bit.
Yeah.
I think the reason why the prices are where they are right now is just because it's not very well known that Hilton owns it as part of it. Yeah. But I think that actually, not that it was bad before by any means, but I think just the fact that Hilton owns it actually improves the stature, I guess, of the area a little bit.
Right.
I mean, what would you say about that? Would you consider that since it's Hilton owned now?
Yeah. Like I would consider it. I mean, I also, every time I drive in to Western Way, you pass those new hotels, those 2 Marriotts, and there's like 3 Marriotts over there, I think now, and there's a couple of Hiltons right off Western Way.
Hilton has a Home 2 and a Homewood Suites over that way.
Right.
Over in that area.
And then there's like a Spring Hill by Marriott.
Spring Hill Suites,
Town Place and a Residence Inn, I think. So, like, there's also like a Target over there. I see the signs for, so I'm like, that's literally Western Way. So you're like right on property, essentially. So could that be the new Disney Springs hotels? Because I've stayed there a lot, the Hiltons on Disney Springs. And they're fine. They're okay. They're decent. Bonnet Creek's the best by far of those, but I wouldn't consider that necessarily Disney Springs, but close enough. But yeah, those caught my eye every time I drive by too. There's tons of options. I think that's why the Airbnbs are so cheap, is because there's a gajillion hotels in Orlando. So
in that Disney Springs area you're talking about, you have actually stayed at like the DoubleTree before, which I would say the Hilton hotels over there are good options, are they not? I mean, they're good options.
They're decent, yeah. I mean
because you get things like the early hours if you want to use that.
Yeah. They're older hotels, but they're okay. Like depending on the room. I think, I don't know, Hilton Buena Vista Palace, it's really hard to say because they're about the same. The Hilton Orlando, Lake Buena Vista, and the Buena Vista Palace, they're about the same price-wise and amenity-wise.
One thing Hilton's got going for it, if you like the going straight to your room, keyless access type stuff that Disney offers, Hilton actually has the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That is one thing that they have.
Yeah, I think,
So
I'm trying to think, Marriott, I feel like Marriott has that now too.
Marriott may. There's probably more of the bigger names, the ones that have been around for a while. They're probably getting more into it, truthfully.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
But I will say what I've looked at recently, and what we were just discussing. Did we discuss this after we started recording? I can't remember. But
Let's see.
Saratoga Springs.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you're looking for a good value as far as price, like say for instance, one of the things I searched, you could get a studio for roughly $330 a night.
Right.
With that 25% discount they're currently offering for the summer.
Yeah, you mean deluxe.
Yeah.
As far as a deluxe goes, it's probably the best price you're going to get.
As far as a deluxe goes, it's probably going to be your best value because you get deluxe amenities, you get the option of the extra hours, and you get it for a price that's roughly the same as a room at Caribbean right now.
I know, which is crazy.
Easy. All right. So
you get the deluxe accommodations, but the resort is definitely laid out like a moderate, basically.
Well, it's spread out. Some of it is. Yes, you're right.
If you get a cheap room, it's going to be like forever away. But
but you do have the options of having your own parking lot. Yeah. If you have your car, you can drive closer to your room.
Right.
And you can potentially drive around the resort itself if you wanted to.
Yeah, for me, and my wife said this recently too, which is to her, Outer Building Coronado is the new Pop Century for her. Because the price is about the same because Pop Century's gone up because of the Skyliner.
Right.
And Coronado Outer Building is usually around the same or cheaper in most cases.
Right. You kind of, when you're at Disney, you kind of have to say, what do I want to trade off?
Yeah. Right.
Right? To get the better value.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
Skyliner.
Do I like having the idea of Skyliner? Well, I might like the idea of having Pop Century for that reason, because that's going to be a cheaper room for that.
Right.
Do I like the idea of having a moderate that has, some pretty good amenities for a lesser price? Well, I might think of Coronado.
Right.
For that, right?
Or do I want a deluxe without having to pay too much? Then I'm going to go to Saratoga, even though it's further away.
Right.
I'm still driving everywhere in my own car, so I don't have to take the slow bus to any of the parks.
And then the plus side with Saratoga is if you're interested in Disney Springs, it's just a boat ride if you want to go across to it.
Some rooms can even walk there if you're close.
Yeah.
If you're close to
or if you're interested in golf. One of the golf courses is relatively close to Saratoga. So.
Right.
You could say the same thing about Old Key West. It's pretty spread out too.
Yeah, Old Key West, yeah. Which I didn't hate Old Key West, actually. I would say it's more spread out than Saratoga.
Yeah. I would think that Old Key West and Saratoga is designed and set up for the people that like staying at the resort with the occasional park access.
Yeah.
That's who those people are. That's who that's designed for, more or less.
Which I don't mind.
Like, want to spend more resort time. And to be honest, another one that's pretty good that has, at least it's close to one of the resorts and you can actually find decent deals, is Animal Kingdom Lodge. That's another one you can usually get for a little less.
Right.
And the amenities there are great. They have great restaurants.
Yeah. Food there.
It's a great theming.
The vibe is really good there. Yeah. As I say.
Great theming. Whenever we last year in January did that pool view room, that was a regular room, but it was
fantastic. The
view was really good. It was one of the better views I've had.
Yeah.
The only other one I can think of off the top of my head I would compare it to was I had a really good view at Yacht Club one time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the view there, excellent.
And I will say, like, I turned my thoughts around on the All-Stars because, they're the cheapest rooms on property you can get. Although the prices of those are kind of going up, depending on the time of year. But as long the new rooms, they're very similar to Pop Century to me, and I don't mind that area. You're close to Animal Kingdom. You're not that far from anything. I mean, still, like 10-minute drive to Hollywood Studios, AK or Epcot. Maybe 12 to 15 from Magic Kingdom, depending on where you're parking. I guess now on the parking lot.
Right.
Anyway. But, I mean, it's not that bad. Like, it's not terrible.
However, if you were staying at one of those, you would still recommend driving.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't take a bus from...
You don't want to take the bus
No.
if you're doing one of those.
If you're at All Stars, never take the bus, please. I beg you, don't take the bus, because, for one, you'll be standing outside in the uncovered, waiting on a bus.
Right.
You will always be the furthest bus stop from any park. It's going to be the furthest bus stop away from everything. And it's just not worth it.
See, one thing about those resorts, the moderates or the values, compared to something like, say, a Polynesian, okay?
Yeah.
You usually have an opportunity to park somewhere close to where you actually stay, right? Like you can go, it has multiple parking lots, in other words.
Right, yeah.
Like the only place at Poly where you have any shot of parking close to where you actually stay is if you're staying in...
The DVC area now, right?
Well, Pago Pago.
Basically.
Essentially just Pago Pago. That's the only building that has its own parking lot. Everything else has a regular parking lot, and it's from the 1970s, mind you, so they're pretty small.
Right.
On top of that. But then again, if you're staying at Poly, you have a lot of good transportation options, so there's that. My point is, though, staying at an All-Stars or some of the mods, you at least have multiple parking lots to choose from. You can get somewhere close to your room most of the time.
Yeah.
And then in that case, you can use your vehicle.
Right.
If you do have one. So,
yeah. I've been able to get pretty close to my car once you learn the layout once you figure out where your room is in the maze of these resorts, you can usually get somewhat close to them.
Whenever I stayed at Coronado last June, the only issue I had with that is the parking lot that was closest to our room, which I probably could have gotten it changed if I really wanted to. The parking lot that was closest to our room was actually closed for some reason, like they were doing some sort of renovations to it or something.
Okay.
So I had to get the one next to that. So I had to walk a little further. But the majority of the time, you can get one at least reasonably close. At the mods, especially. Like when we stayed at Caribbean in 2020, I was literally parked right outside my door. Just about. It was that close. So, now of course you do have to contend with, if you use your vehicle, that parking spot might be taken the next time you come there, but hopefully you'll be able to get something still reasonably close.
Yeah.
One thing about the values is their price point, they're not that bad, but if you compare it to what you can get just off property for that price, room-wise,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
True. Yeah.
The main thing you're getting by staying on property is you're getting the
early entry.
The early entry, which is only 30 minutes now, so you got to ask yourself, is it worth it giving up the accommodations for
free
that?
Parking?
Yeah. Is it worth giving up the accommodations for that, more or less?
I mean, I will say now that they free parking at the parks, but also now that they've dropped the resort.
So you have that.
Right. You also get free parking at the free standard parking, don't you?
What do you mean?
Well,
if you're a resort guest, yes, you do have that. You don't have to pay to park.
At the parks, yeah.
That's true.
Standard parking, which we usually add on preferred just to park closer, but
I wonder how much preferred is for the non-resort guests.
Yeah, it's $50 usually.
Was it?
Depending on if it's a weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's a $50, or holiday, it's going to be $50. And I think the lowest it gets is, I guess, $40. I guess. Anyway,
so preferred is really just a better option if you're like AP.
Right, which is why
Pretty
it's
good option.
25 or 20, depending on
Although,
the day.
yeah, I'm going to say, and although depending on what time of day you get there, it's probably not that much better than the regular
Right.
parking.
Well,
depends.
right. And
Sometimes.
you also get luck of how early you get there is that sometimes you're way down on the row, even though you're, in the preferred area, you could be further away than.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been a couple of times when I got preferred, and I'm like, this is not that much better. But just
Right.
a couple of times.
Yeah, it was a few times. But Hollywood Studios, to me, has the best preferred parking.
Oh, I'm sure. It's most of those are in what used to be handicap, I think, back in
Yeah.
the day. I don't know.
I mean, you're right next to basically the Skyliner station. Preferred. It's
Now,
the best.
If you have someone with you who, I mean, I'm not trying to say this is what you should do, but if you just happen to have someone with you who is disabled, that's the obviously the best, absolute best you're going to get. But
Closest, yeah. But understandably, you should have it.
it should be. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose of it. So I'm not trying to say go out and like, oh, okay, pick up. It's like, hey,
Well, so you'd
Wanna
be
go to
surprised.
Disney with us?
Some people do. Some people have done that. That's
Yeah.
just why they've had to put so many kind of
restrictions on it. Yeah, I know.
rules
They've tried to
and-
take advantage of it as much as possible.
Yeah. People.
It's pretty sad.
It's like, anyway.
But I guess my part of the point in getting to this was it's so expensive to go, right?
Uh-huh.
Like there's certain things you can do to help cut that cost back. And one of them is the most common one, or one of the major ones you can do, is accommodations and looking for deals on
Yeah, 'cause
accommodations.
Tickets,
'Cause
you're not going to get.
You're not going to find that much.
Not
I will
really.
say this, though, probably the best deal ticket-wise is probably going to be Undercover Tourist. I've used them before. That's probably the best true deal you're going to find ticket-wise, to get a little bit off of that if you're trying to save as much as you possibly can.
Yeah.
That's probably going to be the best
Still.
if you don't have something else. But it's not going to be a lot. So
Right.
tickets pretty much are what they are.
I mean, occasionally you'll find stuff like Sam's Club or Costco sells discounted gift cards,
That would help. Yes.
which
if you
again,
buy it
it's
with the gift cards.
not much. Like Sam's Club, for example, this weekend had $200 gift cards for $185.
$15 off of the
So,
mail.
I mean, you
Yeah.
add that up. It's like, okay, you can use those to buy your tickets. If you bought a bunch of $200 gift cards, you get some discount. Target has the red card, which gets you 5% off gift cards. But again, to me,
Nothing-
that's like, is it?
Yeah.
It's do I? Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, if you're getting multiple day tickets, get as much off of it as you possibly can, but just don't
Right.
expect it to be like major.
astronomical. It's going to
Yeah.
be minimal at best.
Right.
yeah.
It's going to be minimal. The place
Very
you're going to be
minimal.
able to save the most money is what kind of a room deal you get,
Yeah, where you
for the most
stay,
part.
But then you have to decide time. If you stay at a value, don't take the bus because you're going to give up so much time
Right.
traveling to and from the park if you take the bus versus driving
Right.
yourself, taking an Uber. It's going to be so much better.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a good option, as you just said, taking an Uber versus taking a minivan, because the
Well, yeah.
price difference
Gah.
is astronomical as well.
Good Lord. Yeah, it's like, yeah. Minivans are like 4 times more expensive than a regular Uber, but they do have a slight advantage of where they can drop you
Where they
off,
can
but-
drop you off, yeah.
But that's not much.
And the
Magic
only
Kingdom's
place
the only place that's
That's
better.
the only. I was about
Yeah.
to say that Magic Kingdom is the only place you're going to get a true advantage with a minivan
Right.
if you're staying at a non-monorail resort. Basically,
Yeah.
that is the only way you're going to get
Right, right.
your money's worth out of a minivan. And it's really you got to ask yourself: is it really worth that little bit of time? Most of the time,
The only time you're going to feel like you got your money's worth is when you're drunk and you're trying to get somewhere and you can't
Yeah.
drive yourself.
it's like,
You're like,
I just don't wanna do
minivan,
that."
let's do it.
Yeah.
That's the only time it's going to work.
There have probably been a number of people that have found themselves in like Epcot, like at the end of the night, they're in World Showcase, like, oh, I got to walk all the way back to the parking lot. Oh, wait a minute, I'm staying at Beach Club. Never mind.
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah.
You can kind of plan your vacations around that sort of stuff. That might be worth it
Yeah.
to stay. If your main goal is to, like Epcot's your favorite place to go, staying in an Epcot resort is a pretty good option.
Yeah. And Swan Dolphin, Swan Reserve, you're going to pay
Yeah,
too
I don't know
much
about
for-
Reserve.
Yeah, they're charging way too much for that hotel. There's not a lot of rooms, and it is nice, but from what I hear, but they're charging like $600 a night for that place. No, it's not that much.
And I will say this here, since we've been talking about ways to try and save some money on it, renting DVC points versus getting them directly is another good option. You do have to
done that.
Typically think in advance for a lot of those to get what you want anyway.
And a lot of times you'll have to pay the whole, I think you do have to pay the whole thing up front.
Yeah, like a deposit or type something like that, yeah.
I feel like
you said the whole thing up front. Where'd you rent them from? Did you rent them from Dave's?
I think it was Dave's, yeah. When we did Old Key West.
See, Dave's has that thing where you have to put up like $100 or whatever just to search to start with.
Right, you have to put the $100 just to get it because they'll have to book it if they get it for you. And then when they do, I believe you got to pay the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, whatever you get there will likely be less. Yeah, it will be less than what you would get from Disney. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, for sure.
For decent accommodations. And nowadays, which include extra hours, if you want them.
I feel like if Jason were here, he would say we could also buy DVC and stay on your points.
You could do that too.
In the long run, it will save you money. Yeah, in the long run.
If you think you're going to be devoted to Disney, DVC probably really is the way to go. As I've said before, in retrospect, like in hindsight, I probably should have bought into DVC like 20 years ago. The way it's worked out.
Totally.
The way it just happened to have worked out. Had I known then what I know now, type deal.
Yes.
But yeah.
But you still have maintenance fees every year.
Yeah.
And things like that. So you still are paying something no matter what.
And you could potentially use points for things like cruise line, but gosh, that's not a good deal to use points on cruise line. It's really not. I've looked at that. I've done that math before. It's really not.
No, it's not. You gotta have a lot of points. Much better paying off on cash these days. I would say you gotta have a lot of points to make it really worth it because you've got the fees every year. It probably
helps to have a good home resort too.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or I say a home resort you like. Like say for instance, whenever they added DVC to Poly, I entertained the idea, but the thing I don't like is your options at Poly are studio or bungalow. There's no in between.
Yet, speaking of, Polynesian's about to get a whole lot more DVC rooms.
I was about to say that would make it a little more appealing, possibly. Although I don't like the eyesore that they have planned, in my opinion.
I mean, construction of that thing is going like crazy. If they built Tron like this, it would have been open 3 years ago.
Yeah, but it's just kind of giving you something to think about. Planning wise, I know we've discussed a lot of more news here recently, but we originally kind of started with giving people tips.
Trip advice.
Yeah, trip advice. So this was an episode for trip advice, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully we'll talk about this subject a little more in the future, especially since I have a trip that I'm planning on, and it looks like, but the way things worked out, planning on staying off property as well. So.
Get back to
we will see how that works out when it's all said and done. So as always, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That is all at TWTM Podcast, and we also have a Spreadshirt store in which you can find our exclusive Traveling with the Mouse or TWTM merchandise. That is shop.spreadshirt.com/TWTM Podcast, and we have a YouTube channel where we've had some classic footage of Splash Mountain that's been getting some pretty good views. And where else can you find that, Adam?
Our website, travelingwiththemouse.com. You have our email address as well, podcast@travelingwiththemouse.com. And if you want to have some assistance booking your next Disney trip, you can use our travel agent friend. Her information is also on our website.
So for Adam, my name is John. This has been Traveling with the Mouse, and we hope you will join us on our next trip.